Well, hello there, YouTube, and Bushcraft USA. I am coming to you now, 4:38 a.m., February 21st, Friday. I've held off talking about this because I've been watching it for the past month and a half, watching it unfold. And I don't know if any of you have followed it or even know about it, because right now the media really isn't stressing it. They're downplaying it. I believe that's to suppress fears. And what I'm talking about is the problem they're having in China, specifically Wuhan. That's where it supposedly started. Now there's keywords and algorithms that catch words and phrases, so I'm going to try not to use them. Otherwise YouTube will, well, they'll demonetize your channel, but mine's not monetized anyway, at least not by me. So I'm not worried about that. But what I am worried about is when they catch these certain phrases and keywords, because it is being downplayed and they don't want people spreading the truth. They don't put it in people's recommended sites, so you won't see it in your recommended video feed. You'll have to actually look for it. And I want you guys and gals to be able to find this, because I do believe it's important. So I got some stuff here I want to show you.
Hello.
So just bear with me here for a minute. Now this is Dr. Paul Cottrell, and that OCD kicking in, camera's crooked. So we'll just play this here, it's a quick one.
Oh, this is Dr. Paul Cottrell. I just received an email just now from an individual that works at Hopkins. I'm assuming it's John Hopkins. And because of HIPAA, they can't release their full name. But there is 2 confirmed cases of COVID-19 at Hopkins right now.
So now John Hopkins University is in Baltimore. Let me look. Because there's a few, because he just said Hopkins. Well, and I looked it up just before, but I'll do it again. Now the John Hopkins University is in Baltimore, Maryland. There's also Hopkins, Michigan, and there's a Hopkins, Minnesota. So from that video it's kind of unclear of exactly where it is. There's also cases in Florida that they're not reporting. They may be reporting to the CDC or the WHO, but they're not reporting it to the public because they're claiming it's doctor-patient confidentiality stuff. But if you look into that, there's 3 exceptions to that rule where they are allowed to announce it. Like, not the patient's name or where they live per se, but what the disease is or the problem. And the first one is something to the effect of, if it, well, you can look it up if you want, or just follow some videos. I don't want to make this too long, and I don't want to have to do too much editing, because I don't care to. Anyway, another channel I watch is this one, but I don't really know how to say his name, so we'll just show you this one.
Alright everyone, the situation over the last 48 hours has gone from pretty bad to quite a bit worse with regards to coronavirus. So here's today's update. First, in case totals, we still don't have proper numbers. It looks like they're missing the Hubei update or something. I'm not exactly sure what's happening with that, but it's definitely higher than the claimed total. The claimed total's like 76,000 something. That's been pretty much stalled out for 3 days. I don't believe that number, not as far as I can throw it, and that's a lot of people. It's wrong. The Chinese government is clearly underestimating cases and or has run out of test kits in a lot of places and or has botched their criteria again, which means we can no longer as outsiders rely upon those numbers. Every indicator from within China that we do have access to that doesn't involve Chinese government itself involves claims of hundreds of thousands of people sick. I believe that, and I'll tell you why. We now have 3 new cases of coronavirus claimed in Iran. These are apparently tested positive, so they're not just suspected. You had 2 deaths the other day. The problem is, because of the death rate of this virus being as it is, if you have 2 deaths, you've probably got hundreds of people infected in Iran. Some of them are asymptomatic, most of them haven't been accounted for. They're wandering around in an urban setting in a country that is marginally developed, or rather developing, but does not have the kind of medical apparatus necessary to crack down on coronavirus, number 1. Number 2 is a pariah to most of the Western world and probably would neither be offered nor accept aid. This could be a huge problem. We now have a state of emergency declared in Korea. South Korea, that is, because you now have over 100 total cases there. You have more than 30 active infections that are accounted for in this last couple of days. I believe the first person has died in South Korea as well. So the virus is now spread to South Korea. It's now taken hold there. These are native cases. They're not involved with Chinese travel because there basically is none. There are parts of South Korea that are, at the moment, apparently sort of like ghost towns, and unfortunately what I predicted would happen and what I warned people of appears to have happened, which is that you've had food runs. Which means there are shortages, there's panic, people are locking themselves in their homes. I'm going to tell you a uniquely Asian problem that I can see, and it deals with a news story from less than a week ago. Less than a week ago, they talked about the fact that certain buildings, by virtue of their design, can be turned essentially into incubators. We saw this on the cruise ship. If you are in a flat-style building structure, Asian style, a lot of them share their air. That is, that the circulation of the air in that building takes potentially infected air from one location to the other within the building, at least within the floor. If that is indeed the case, sheltering at home is arguably the worst thing that you can do. It increases your odds of infection. If there's one person in your building who coughs up a lunger, anywhere near a vent, everyone else in the building is at risk. Now, what can you do about this? Pretty much nothing. There's the problem. Of course, there are certain restrictions on that kind of circulation of air, I believe, I think related to Legionnaires and stuff in some new Western buildings, but even there, not very common. So essentially, this disease is going to hit hardest in areas that are compact. Compact residential zones, even more than like a subway or something like that, are probably the main generation point of this disease. That's just a theory, or rather hypothesis, that maybe months now will find is true, but that's what I'm speculating. We now also have a watch on travel to Japan. Japan has seen native cases now too. If this virus indeed has taken hold in South Korea and Japan as well as much of mainland China, the odds of stopping it are between 0 and nothing, essentially. You're talking about an enormous population, extremely dense population areas in this part of the world. A lot of travel, a huge amount of economic trade related to banking and production. Good luck, is all I can say. Good fucking luck trying to take care of it. Also, we found that those temperature guns, they're completely goddamn useless. They don't work most of the time. In fact, none of the people that have come to the United States and been infected have been tested positive by these temperature guns. That's because the virus can incubate for 2-3 weeks and not cause any symptoms. In some cases, a person will test positive and not have symptoms. They're still shedding the virus on anything that they touch, but they're not even coughing or sneezing. That makes them somewhat less infective, which is the good part. The bad part is it's impossible to trace them unless you've caught them early. Especially if they tested negative, got on a plane because of that fact, and ended up going to another country. This is a fiasco, and I guarantee that the real reason why the numbers are being suppressed is because it's a fiasco. China's economy has begun to take a hit. We've got new reports that the local economy in the Hubei and surrounding region is facing a downturn already as we speak. Does the Chinese government want that to continue? God damn no. That's what they initially tried to stop with suppressing the news in the first place. For the first 2 weeks of the epidemic, they started censoring people who spoke about it because they were terrified. Oh my God, investors might flee or something. You know what? It'll probably be just like SARS or any of these others, easily contained, burn itself out, so don't even tell anyone. Don't even talk about it because it's a nothing burger. That's what they speculated. Every other time they've been right. Unfortunately, this time they were wrong. And it only takes one wrong when you're acting in that manner. It's like if you take a gun, you're playing Russian roulette, you point it at your head and press the trigger. It doesn't matter how many times you're right and how many times there's no bullet there. All you need is one bullet to be there, and when you press the trigger and you're fucked. You can only make that mistake once. China has apparently found that out the hard way, and now the rest of the world is hazarded too. The virus has taken hold in at least 3 other countries. South Korea, Japan, and Iran. I wouldn't be surprised if it takes hold elsewhere very quickly. Because you got to understand, there's no travel ban in these countries. People, Americans, Europeans, have been rubbing elbows with people in South Korea, in Seoul, in Tokyo, in places where there are these infections. They come home, there's no reason for them to have been checked because they weren't traveling to China. The checks only involve travel to China, and half the time the checks don't even work. At this time, again, I recommend that people have some basic supplies on hand. Food, water, iodized salt comes to mind. Some fucking candles or, the good camp stove or something. Keep things on hand. Do some basic prepping so that you don't have to go out shopping if all of a sudden coronavirus hits your community. There are food runs. There's chaos. There's panic. Don't go outside into that. Just prepare beforehand, wait a couple of weeks, and then you can go out, and it probably, by then, it's probably blown over. The biggest risk to you is panic, people punching each other out over the last can of beans. The last can of over-salted beef stew. By the way, why is it that Dinty Moore and every other goddamn kind of canned stew oversalts it? Why the hell do they add so much? I mean, I don't want to chew on rock salt. If I'm going to eat a stew, I want it to taste like something other than the ocean. I'd like it to taste like meat and root vegetables and some celery. They add about 2-3 times as much salt as they need. It's like good for a heart-healthy diet. Either you survive or you palpitate and have a massive coronary, just like Bernie Sanders, and die, I suppose. So anyway, I do recommend that at this time. We've got a watch on travel to Japan. We got cases in Iran and South Korea. If you think that Iran is capable of containing it, I don't know, dude. I don't think so. Unfortunately, we're not getting adequate numbers, and the reason for that is probably bad. We're probably not getting inaccurate and considerably underestimated totals out of the kindness of China's heart. Maybe they've decided, hey, we're going to get rid of the virus by declaring it illegal to be sick. That's what commies would do, I suppose. That's about all. Peace out.
So, this is what I'm saying. You don't panic. And like that guy there was saying, do yourself a favor and make sure you got some basic food stocks on hand, because I wouldn't want to be out there when there's chaos in the store. And if the problem is here, I don't want to risk exposing myself with the store full of people pushing and shoving and coughing and sneezing and bumping into you and everything else. So that's mainly what this video is about. I don't want to panic anybody, because that's not what it's about. That does not help anything. But I just hope that everyone is prepared. Everyone who sees this, I hope, is prepared. So I don't know, what do we got here? 16 minutes. That's about it for now. I mean, if you want to know more, you can look into it yourself. But I wouldn't suggest following it all day long, because it just gets depressing. And realizing how numbers are being suppressed and information is being withheld, and I can understand the reason for that, because most people don't plan ahead. And then if you release all this stuff, that's when they start panicking and rushing to the store and hoarding everything so they have it and nobody else does. Now, another good point in one of the videos I was watching is it brings up people saying, with the economy taking a turn for the worse and shipping not being there, eventually we're going to run out of stuff. So they're suggesting that you invest in gold and silver. Well, if you're thirsty but you have a bag of potatoes and someone says, well, I'll give you a silver coin or even a whole silver bar for that bag of potatoes, and I come up and say, I'll give you a gallon of water for that bag of potatoes, which one are you going to take? Just some food for thought. Okay, Spirit Wolf with Bushcraft USA and Weekend Wanderer 3 with YouTube, signing out.